It's a warm welcome here in our studio in Sarakunda. This is Star TV News and I am Manager Fadera. In the headlines tonight, Kumba Jaiteh's sweet victory as SAC now bounces back as Supreme Court rules Barrow's action unlawful. 24 stranded Gambians in Libya returns home. Miss Fulbe International brief stakeholders on the international scene. Government forces stop Haftar from taking Misrata. Sahel children are victims of increasing violence, reveal UNICEF. Republicans lack votes to block witnesses. Those were the headlines, and now the news in details. Kumba Jaiteh reacted to the Supreme Court's judgment with a smile as she said to the top court's judgment is a victory for the country and its democracy. The country's highest court yesterday ruled that President Adam Barrow acted unlawfully in terminating Ms. Jaiteh as a nominated National Assembly member. Omar Job sends in this report.
Kumba Jaiteh handed the Supreme Court its real first test of the post-Jammeh era when she, in March 2019, filed a lawsuit at the Supreme Court challenging her sacking by President Adam Barrow. The president, who the law allows to nominate 5 people to the National Assembly, has sacked Ms. Jaiteh 2 days earlier. Ms. Jaiteh then went to the court, claiming the president did not have the power to do so. However, on the 15th March 2019, Kumba appeared to have lost the case when the Supreme Court rejected her application that sought to prevent the swearing-in of her replacement, Fode Gassama, who President Adam Barrow had tapped to replace her. On Tuesday, the country's highest court finally ruled on whether the president was right in sacking her. The court held that she was unlawfully sacked. The purported termination of nomination of Kumba Jaiteh through an executive letter was unconstitutional, null and void. Hassan B. Jallow, Chief Justice, said in a unanimous judgment. The third defendant, Gassama's nomination is unconstitutional, null and void, he added. The Chief Justice then issued an injunction for Mr. Gassama to desist from presenting himself as a nominated member of the National Assembly anywhere. Kumba Jaiteh spoke to journalists outside the court saying the court decision was a victory for the country. This is not Kumba Jaiteh's victory, but the victory of the country and its democracy.
In a press release sent to Star TV by Attorney General's Chambers and Ministry of Justice, the government of the Gambia, through the Attorney General's Chambers and Ministry of Justice, has taken note of the decision of the Supreme Court in the case of Kumba Jaiteh versus Clerk of the National Assembly and orders delivered on the 28th January 2020. The government wishes to further assure the general public that, notwithstanding its disappointment, it will fully comply with the Supreme Court's decision with immediate effect. This is the position expected of a government that is committed to respect for the rule of law and democracy. It demonstrates that no matter our individual opinions or divergent views, especially in matters of national interest, we are all subject to the law and that no person or group of persons are above the law. Decisions like this were unthinkable only 3 years ago, and it goes to reinforce the extent to which the independence of our judiciary has come in this short period of time. Under this administration, the government therefore calls upon everyone in this country to be law-abiding and to make use of democratic process, including the courts, to address their grievances. The release ends. A member of the second sect, UNICEF, has told the TRRC Sirindigal stop praying after a revelation from God. Sirindigal was a top cleric in Kirmot Ali in Upper Salum, whose version of Islam includes not performing the 5 daily prayers. The cleric had a followership base of at least 5,000 in the Gambia and Senegal. Our TRRC reporter Sena Bujasi files in this report.
I don't know whether the current bifals pray or not, but we don't pray, Yunusa elaborated. He said that the difference between these two sects, the Murids of Senegal and their sect, is the 5 daily prayers, but there is another which is spiritual. He added that as per religion, there are some prayers they perform, but not as mandated by Islam. The sect decided to take another path of worship and avoided the ritual of prayers in 2002 and stopped praying since that time, but decided to take another way, and this did not affect their relationship in the village. He added that Ndigal had so many followers and they were almost about 5,000 people. Mr. Cisse also agreed that their beliefs are different from the beliefs of Mourids in Touba, Senegal. He denied the allegations that they keep their corpse until they receive instruction for burial and that their bride price is 2 mins. Was alleged by his brothers that he is into drug trafficking, falsification of money, attempt to overthrow Jammeh by possessing weapons. Ndigal was arrested and taken to Farafenni police station from NIA headquarters in Banjul and then proceeded to serious unit crime. He met Supreme Islamic Council and discussed with them the basis of his beliefs, and the Supreme Islamic Council threatened him to tie and throw him in the river. The people of Ker Mamat Ali are now residing in Senegal due to the problems they had with former President Jammeh. Seynabou Jasseh, Star TV News.
24 Gambian migrants stranded in Libya have returned home safely through the International Organization for Migration Voluntary Humanitarian Return Program. Among the 24 returnees were 2 female minors. They first joined a total of 88 stranded migrants, including Malians and Guineans, on a charter flight from Tripoli to Bamako, then proceeded onward to Banjul. In the same evening, 5 Gambians stranded in Morocco were also assisted to return home. Binta Koli has the details.
The returnees were provided temporary accommodation, meal and non-food item kits containing essential supplies, such as hygiene materials. The following day, they were issued arrival assistance cards, which they can use for temporary identification, and underwent a preliminary medical and psychosocial screening. After taking part in an orientation session on the process of receiving integration assistance, each of them received pocket money in Gambian Dalasi Ward, €65 to cover basic needs. Over the coming weeks, IOM will be working closely with the government and development partners to ensure the returnees' economic, social, and psychosocial integration. Each will commence counseling sessions to tailor integration assistance to their specific needs, interests, and skills, and based on the available opportunities in the country. This assistance may consist of support to set up or strengthen a small business, support to pursue education or vocational training, support for job insertion, or referrals to other services or other forms of support, such as housing or psychosocial counseling. Returnees also have the option to team up for collective or community-based projects. Even though the number of Gambians stranded in Libya has decreased considerably since 2017, we deem it crucial to offer assistance to those who wish to return home but do not have the means to do so, particularly in light of the deteriorating situation in Libya. Express Pomigo Nagano, IOM's Chief of Mission in the Gambia. Through the EU IOM Joint Initiative for Migrant Protection and Integration, IOM has assisted over 5,000 returnees, including over 3,000 from Libya alone. IOM continues to facilitate voluntary return from other countries, including over 500 returnees from Nigeria in 2019. The joint initiative is founded by the European Union Emergency Trust Fund for Africa and covers 26 African countries. The project aims to contribute to migration governance and to support the sustainable integration of returning migrants through an integrated approach which addresses economic, social, and psychological dimension and fosters the inclusion of communities in the process. For Star TV News, I am Binta Kuli.
The Israel ambassador to Senegal and the Gambia, His Excellency Roya Rosa Blink, visited Banjul yesterday. The diplomat, who has been in office for over a year, met with various members of the Gambia government. The objective of this 48-hour visit is to strengthen cooperation between Tel Aviv and Banjul through the promotion of startups in the country. An Israel expert led a workshop yesterday at the University of the Gambia on the promotion of entrepreneurship. In this interview with our reporter Amadou Bari, His Excellency Roya Rosa Blink talked about his visit to the Gambia.
And basically we wanted to enhance our cooperation. We also brought here an expert from Israel in innovation and entrepreneurship. A private sector, a person who actually built a few businesses, very successful startups in Israel. As you know, Israel is a startup nation, and he is one of the experts in building the ecosystem for startups. And we wanted to give him the floor to just share some of his experience with Gambian students here at the University of the Gambia in entrepreneurship, in how to innovate, in how to build their own businesses. So I'm very happy to be here again in the Gambia. I mean, in having, for example, we have now 11 students of agriculture, graduate students in agriculture, for a 1-year program of learning by doing. I mean, they both get lectures and they learn about new technologies in agriculture in Israel, and they work there and they imply those technologies. Gambians, 11 Gambians in Israel are right now for a year. They are so happy with them because Gambians are really hardworking. They are studying very seriously, and I hope that next year I will take as many as 25 or 30 students. I mean, triple this number of Gambians studying in Israel. So this is one example of a program. Certainly, our next job jointly, I mean, our embassy together with the Gambian authorities, our next job is to convince Israeli private sector, because, you know, Israeli's private sector is very spoiled. They are used to working in California, Silicon Valley, in Europe, in the most developed countries.
The Executive Committee of Miss Fulbe International, an organization aimed at brings together young people with the quest to develop and promote the Fulani culture, on Tuesday briefed its stakeholders on this year's event at the Pinchumi Hotel in Kololi. Modu Baji was there and he now files in this report.
This year's event will be encapsulated with many events, such as tour to various tourist attraction centers, historical places, football competition, and fascinating prizes that will be dedicated to the best team. However, among the missed competitors, the best out of them will stand the chance to have an air ticket to United States. Speaking at the ceremony, the Secretary General of the association, Malado Jallo, said they will conduct a VIP tour to tourist attraction centers like Bakau Crocodile Pool, Snake Farm, Camel Farm. Ms. Jallo indicated that the objective of this tour is to expose the culture and historical background of the Gambia. The president of the Miss Fulbe Gambia International, Yusfa P. Balde, indicated that they will be expecting high-powered delegations from Senegal, Nigeria, and the United States of America. Mr. Balde further took time to shed light on the objective behind the organization.
The reason why we gathered to organize Miss Fulbe, it is we were having a problem in this Gambia, the Fulbe, the Pullo Fuda, the Fulakunda, the Fullo Cabo. There was a little bit difference. I could remember when I was going to school, the Fulakunda feel like is the best Fula, is the original Fula. Why the Pullo Fuda is not the original Fula? Or the Pullo Fuda think that the Fulakunda or the Pullo Habo, they are not Fulas. So this was the reason. This was the reason why we emerged from the idea of organizing Miss Fulbe. Since 2014, up to date, we have been struggling. We don't even have a bank account, a healthy bank account. Like what they said, we don't have an, if I give Mohammed Bari to tell us how much do we have in our account, I know it's maybe minus zero. Because GD Bank is going to debit us for staying there long without putting money inside the account. So that is it. And then seriously, we have been trying. We have been trying a lot. We are non-political. I will make this very clear. The media is the media is listening. We are non-political. But again, we are not anti-government. We are not political, but we are not anti-government. If the government call us, we will go. We are obliged to answer to the government. But again, in our platform, there will be nobody who will be authorized to support any government. If we are called to the government, we will go and then sell our agenda. Because this is what we are yearning for.
President Balde added that this year's event will be one of its kind because the winner will be given a ticket to United States of America, and also took time to thank the sponsors of their previous event and the Senegalese delegation. However, other speakers also seized the opportunity to pray for Miss Fulbe Gambia International and urged them to keep up the momentum. Modu El Baji, Star TV.
We are going for a short break and we'll be back with the international news. Welcome back after that short commercial break, and now the news beyond our borders. Government troops are making further advances into the territory controlled by renegade military commander Khalifa Haftar and have halted an operation by his forces to take the northwestern city of Masrata. Al Jazeera's Tony Bedr reports from the front line in the town of Abu Ghraib.
Driving to the front line through territory that just 3 days ago was held by warlord Khalifa Haftar's forces. This government soldier is passing on intelligence about a possible air attack. He tells everyone to be vigilant. The threat from the air is always present. Heavy artillery and air power enabled Haftar's units to overrun government forces and take the town of Abu Ghraib, 80 kilometers east of Misrata on Sunday. But in the face of a massive counter-offensive, they could only hold it for less than 2 hours. Soldiers and civilians answered the call.
The families of Misrata are altogether united with one voice within 1 hour. 20,000 came from Misrata to Abu Ghraib with ammunition and weapons.
This is the new front line. After retaking Abu Ghraib, units then pushed Haftar's forces back 20 kilometers. They may be wounded, but they are not beaten. They are a well-equipped and heavily armed enemy which can attack at any moment.
It's dangerous. They are using drones, heavy artillery, Grad rockets. But God willing, He will protect us. We are taking our precautions.
They lost 11 men in the weekend attack and 100 were injured, including some civilians. This is the funeral of a little girl who died of natural causes. But people have remained here living with danger every day, and they are suffering.
We're facing live shooting. It's the biggest danger from all sides. It's indiscriminate. It's difficult because in wars you can't predict what will happen.
This medical facility in nearby Zamzam is the only community healthcare centre for 100 kilometres. The administrator said Haftar's fighters ransacked the place and stole ambulances and all the equipment. It only adds to the misery and increases the anger. This young wounded fighter has lost comrades. He is calling Haftar a dog. He, like many others, may find reconciliation difficult when peace eventually comes. But many are growing weary of fighting.
We prefer a ceasefire. We are all Libyans and we want to stop the bloodshed. But if this old man, Haftar, announces every day that he wants to take more land and kill more Libyan young men, then we will continue to fight until our last man.
It's a wild, rugged land where little grows, but so much blood is being spilled to control it, even though there is a notional ceasefire in place.
No one yet has declared the ceasefire dead, but what has happened here and in the sporadic attacks in Tripoli show just how volatile the situation still is and how quickly calm can turn to bloodshed. Tony Bertley, Al Jazeera, Abu Ghraib, east of Misrata.
Africa's Sahel region is facing staggering levels of violence, and the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund is warning nearly 5 million children will need aid there this year. UNICEF says children are increasingly the target of attacks, obstructions and forced recruitment by army groups. It says 670,000 children were forced from their homes last year, hampering their access to food, water and education. Al Jazeera's Alexia O'Brien reports.
Across large parts of West and Central Africa, these scenes are all too familiar. A village burned in an attack, and families on the run, carrying whatever they can.
7 months ago, we had to flee our village because armed groups arrived. They killed and took away some of the villagers. We got scared, so we fled and took refuge here in Kaya.
Nabila is among 5 million children the UN says will need aid in the region this year, the most vulnerable, now increasingly at risk.
The children are directly impacted by the armed violence because children do not have access anymore to education, to health facilities and to social services in general. But also we have noticed an increase in grave violations against children last year compared to the previous years.
UNICEF says hundreds of thousands of children have lived through trauma, been sexually abused, kidnapped or forced to fight for armed groups. The UN Secretary-General has warned the world is losing the war in the Sahel. Fighters affiliated with Al-Qaeda and ISIL have increased their presence in the region. They've also stoked ethnic violence. Thousands of troops have been deployed to the area from the Sahel countries, but also France and the US. The French Minister for the Armed Forces was in Washington on Monday. She says expected cuts by the Pentagon to its Africa mission would severely limit counter-terror operations.
Our friends in the Sahel are in a situation where our assistance is critical, and I have expressed the hope that both the United States and France will keep on supporting them.
But the impact of the conflict goes beyond violence. There's hunger too, and not enough water. 670,000 children have been forced from their homes into camps like this, set up in what used to be a school. This little boy may be in a classroom, but there's no maths or science here, just tough life lessons taught too soon. Alexia O'Brien, Al Jazeera.
The U.S. Senate leader Mitch McConnell says his fellow Republicans may not have the votes to block witnesses from testifying at Donald Trump's impeachment trial. Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski has said she may at some point vote to allow witnesses' testimony. She says she is committed to delivering impartial justice and has at times diverged from her colleagues. Mitt Romney of Utah and Susan Collins of Maine have been critics of Trump in the past. But Murkowski has perhaps been the most vocal. Al Jazeera's Andy Gallagher reports from Anchorage, Alaska.
With only 3 electoral college votes, Alaska doesn't wield the kind of political power seen in other parts of the U.S. The state's senior senator, Lisa Murkowski, though, could play a pivotal role in President Trump's impeachment trial. She's already expressed dissatisfaction with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's declaration
I'm not an impartial juror.
that he'll run the impeachment process in total coordination with the White House. Previously, she's broken party lines on the appointment of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh and disagreed with Republicans on reforming health care. On impeachment, she remains a potential problem for the Republicans.
If it means that I am viewed as one who looks openly and critically at every issue in front of me rather than acting as a rubber stamp for my party or my president, I'm totally good with that.
Political strategist Jim Lotzfeld, who's worked with Murkowski in previous years, says the senator is likely to tread a delicate line.
She does not want to become a pariah among Republicans in the Senate. So all of this goes into a very complicated balancing act to do the right thing, but at the same time, not alienate all her colleagues.
The impeachment of President Trump is perhaps the most partisan in U.S. history. Both parties remain divided, with little chance dissenting voices will make a difference.
Even if Senator Murkowski breaks ranks with her own party, it's not likely to lead to the conviction of the president, but it may shape whether witnesses appear before the trial. Pushback from Murkowski could give the Democrats the votes they need to subpoena former National Security Advisor John Bolton. Either way, Murkowski, Romney and Collins could play important roles in the historic days ahead. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera, Anchorage, Alaska.
Many of Iraq's protesters have been driven by worries about the economy and high unemployment levels, but months of demonstrations, along with a weak government, have pushed an already struggling economy to the brink. On top of that, there is a threat of direct U.S. sanctions if American forces are ordered out of Iraq. Al Jazeera's Usami bin Javad reports from Baghdad.
Hussein Ali can't afford to retire. He worked all his life at a local hospital and now collects used items to sell on the street. But no one buys anything these days.
The
market here is dead. There's nothing to sell. It's been almost a month now since I have sold anything.
That's a reflection of Iraq's declining economy, which has been made worse by months of protest in Baghdad and the southern provinces and increased tension between the United States and Iran. But there's also a caretaker government which doesn't even have the power to pass the budget.
We have issues with the budget, security, economy. We have plenty of complicated issues. All that needs a strong government and a strong state.
The uncertainty makes people want to spend less, and that's bad news for daily earners like Bakir and his helper. He's already quit his job as a taxi driver because of traffic jams and security issues. Now he's struggling to sell vegetables.
The problem is that nothing has changed. It has gone from bad to worse. Life is becoming harder every day. Go and see the shops. All will say, we do not have work. Everyone is suffering. All are suffering.
Analysts say any embargo on trade and energy from Iran will add to the suffering of the people. The unilateral sanctions imposed in the 1990s only ended up creating hunger and deprivation among Iraqis.
The US president's warning of sanctioning Iraq if it goes ahead with plans to force out US troops, coupled with additional sanctions on Iran, has business owners concerned. In 2015, the United States temporarily suspended Iraqi central bank's account in New York because of concerns that the money was going to Iran.
In February, a special provision which allows Iraq to circumvent US sanctions on Iran will expire. Almost a third of Iraq's power supply is imported from Iran as electricity and gas. Iran is also a major trade partner with more than $30 billion worth of imports every year. But Iraq's government is optimistic about its relationship with the US and says Washington cannot afford to sever Baghdad.
Iraq has strong relations with the US government on financial, political, economic and military levels. I don't think the US will risk those. The US cannot lose Iraq. The budget for 2020 came with high rate of deficit, but after intervention by the PM himself, the deficit was lowered down to less than $20 billion.
But for almost 40 million Iraqis, the claims of reforms with no concrete actions yet taken do not bring relief or any certainty. Hussein Ali has heard it all before, promises of improvement made and broken for decades. Osama bin Javed, Al Jazeera, Baghdad.
And before we end the news, a recap of our main headlines. Kumba Jaiteh's sweet victory as sect now bounces back as Supreme Court rules Barrow's action unlawful. CRC asks Christians and Muslims to resolve their security differences through dialogue. 24 stranded Gambians in Libya returns home. Miss Fulbe International brief stakeholders. Well, that's all for this edition of the news. Please enjoy the rest of our programs and join us tomorrow for more news. Thank you.